record. Okay, so we're gonna record this for the people who are not here. Okay. So we just talked about some things that were good that happened this week. Does anyone want to share their thing that happened?
I'll share.
Okay.
Cause I'm super happy about it. Um, and I'm an advertiser, so I got a facial at the Benton Beauty Academy, and it was $5 for a 45-minute session of fun getting a facial massage with like hot rags and stuff. Let me tell you, I have felt so good since I got that facial. Like I have not stopped smiling. It was so good. And it was only $5. Like they're students, of course, so like they're learning how to do this, but it was $5 and that was a at least $100 experience. It was awesome. But look up Benton Beauty Academy and go get your $5 facial, bro. I'm advertising this hard because it was so good.
I'm actually writing it down now because I need that in my life. I am
Yeah.
very grateful that you shared that. We're gonna talk about what we're grateful for. I'm grateful for the $5
Yeah.
facial that I just found out about. Thank you.
They stop walk-ins at 3, so go before 3.
Gotcha. Thank you. Would anyone else like to share the good thing that happened to them this week or the good thing they experienced?
Uh, I went and saw an awesome band I've been anticipating since the start of the pandemic because it kind of hung them up. But it was a band. This is when you throw a come through band, you know, some dollars on some merch. They were pretty good. They're kind of like progressive jazz, is what I would explain their style. They are all instrumental and visual effects. You should look them up on YouTube. The name of the band is Talk, Tauk.
Okay, I'll hit them up. Getting all sorts of suggestions tonight. I love it. I think we have time for one more if someone else wants to share before we move on. So would anyone else like to share what happened this week? That was good. Okay. That's cool. I hope something good happened this week that you were able to share about. But today it's our interpersonal conflict communication workshop. Um, First things first, I would like to do just a quick agenda. I'd like to do a mini culture and communication lesson since we missed that on Tuesday. Again, I apologize for that. I have sent many emails back and forth with my principal to let him know I need much more notice than just a couple of hours when we're going to have meetings after school so I can make arrangements for that. Um, I've mentioned, y'all have to know, my principal is, bless him, I love him, he's great. He's also ancient, and he forgot that I taught college classes after school on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And so he just, at like noon or 11:30 noon, he was like, "We have this meeting after school, guys." And I was like, that is not enough time to figure out how I'm going to make it home. So I do apologize for that. Um, they have it written down now that I need like advance notice of those so that I can make accommodations. But with that being said, we're going to have a mini culture and communication lesson. Today is a workshop, so hopefully you brought your outlines or your rough drafts so that you can get some peer feedback on those. And then we'll talk about some due dates and then upcoming assignments for the unit 3 unit 3 that we'll be working in. And again, that is open on Blackboard now, so you can go in and see all of those things that we'll be working on in unit 3. But with that, let's go ahead and get started with the culture and communication. I have so many emails. Y'all are seeing all the emails. I think I emailed y'all the other day on my personal email, and that was not intentional, but I have so many that I don't know which one I'm emailing from most of the time. Okay. So we're going to skip through some of this. We're not going to do another icebreaker, but I had such a fun icebreaker plan. So just so y'all know, y'all were gonna mark 3 different public events that happened in your lives that were like super significant for you, and we were going to talk about them and why those were important, and all of that was going to have a reason because we were going to talk about culture and communication. So what is culture or your cultural identity? Culture has existed for as long as the world has existed, or at least as long as humans have existed within the world. But as far as culture as we know it today, it's very much constructed in viewpoints, and for political and social reasons, and those viewpoints have changed over time. Those constructs have changed over time. So culture and cultural identity, it includes race, your gender, your sexuality, your ability. So Grayson got kicked out. Let's bring him back in. So your race, the socially constructed category based on, our appearance. This has been used. I mean, if you've studied any history at all, you know that race has been used to create hierarchies of privilege and disadvantage. Wow, our TAs are really wilding out today. So race, that plays a big part in our culture and cultural identity. Gender, which is our identity based on internalized cultural notions of masculinity or femininity. Okay, that word. It's the kind of day we're having. So sexuality, your primary physical and emotional sexual attraction and activity, and then your ability. So some systems. Oh man, is Grayson having trouble? So the system of beliefs and practices that produce a physical or mental standard. So we see this, right? We have standards in schools that kids or college students, there are standards that we think at a certain age you're supposed to be able to reach those things, and if not, you don't have that ability to reach that, whether that's physical or mental. You see this like PE class, we had to take that physical test where we had to like run the mile or do like the president fitness thing where you'd have to do so many push-ups or sit-ups or whatever. These standards are what's projected as normal for us, and any deviations from those, that's abnormal. With all of these different forms of cultural identity, we see what's called code switching. So obviously each of us fall into each of these categories in some way or another, and they all help make up our cultural identity. So if you are a part of a specific race that has been disadvantaged in the past or is still disadvantaged in some ways, but you are a part of a minority group when it comes to your sexuality, you might see this code switching that happens, which is just changing the way you speak between one another, or between like within these interactions. So you might speak differently with people amongst your race versus people of a different race, or people of your sexuality, of the same sexuality, or at least that same community, versus people of different sexuality or gender or ability. But code switching is when you jump back and forth. So I think an example that it brought up in the book is people of color may engage in this code switching when communicating with dominant group members versus when they communicate with other members, because there's this fear of being negatively judged. So you'll see code switching a lot. You see that happen a lot. Let's see. Am I speaking in a customer service voice, or are you asking if that's the customer service voice is like code switching? Are you asking, Nick, if customer service voice is code switching?
Yes.
Yeah. So my example for this, I worked at Dillard's when I was going through college. And yeah, the customer service voice would be code switching. So I don't normally talk with a super Southern drawl. I took a lot of years to try to get rid of my Southern drawl. Not that anything is bad with a Southern accent, but I realized I had a hard time communicating because mine was so heavy. So I spent a lot of time getting rid of that. Now, when I was at Dillard's and in um, working in the women's department or whatever department I was in at the time, sometimes old men who were a little creepy would come in and try to flirt with me. And it made me feel uncomfortable, but also I knew I could get big money. So I would pull out my Southern drawl, even though I don't actually speak with one anymore. And I would be a Southern belle, and I would be the stereotypical Southern girl. I full voice, like, oh yes sir, like yes ma'am, whatever. Like I brought it all out. Sometimes, most of the time, all the time, that was so I could get more money out of them because my paycheck was very dependent on that. But yeah, your customer service voice is code switching um in a low risk scenario, because you are changing how you interact with someone based on um one of these things that are happening. So based on um like whatever that looks like, your race, your gender, your sexuality, your ability. But yeah, code switching is your customer service voice for sure. um that's definitely a way to like put up a wall or have a boundary, um whether that's to make you feel safe or because you're afraid you're going to be negatively judged. But yeah, that customer service voice, that's a good example of code switching. So a big part of intercultural communication, which was the big thing that this chapter covered, was dialect. So the dialectical approach is what we saw, or is one thing that was discussed. So the dialect is the relationship between two opposing concepts that constantly push and pull one another. And this helps us realize that our experiences often occur in between two different phenomena. So these dichotomies are usually like the good, evil, right, wrong, um, objective, subjective, male, female, in group, out group, black, white, and all the other many dichotomies we could talk about. Um, and these dichotomies form the basis of our thoughts on ethics, on culture, general philosophy. Um, and a lot of times we see this struggle of, if you have that conversation with an older family member, or of someone of different beliefs, you're like, there's other ways of thinking. But oftentimes when we're stuck in those dichotomies, we don't see the other ways of thinking. So while there are many ways of thinking about communication and culture and ethics, um, if you get stuck in those dichotomies, a lot of times it's a very one track mind. So cultural individual dialects. This is interplay between pattern behaviors learned from your cultural group and your individual behaviors. There can be variations or counters to those in larger cultures, but this is when you see someone um, who has their own individual identity, but a lot of um, cultural behaviors as well come from, they exhibit a lot of those cultural behaviors. Okay. All right. So personal contextual dialects. This is the connection between our personal patterns of preferences and for communicating, and how various contexts influence that personal approach. There's the differences similarities dialect. So we examine how we are simultaneously similar and different from others, the static and dynamic dialect, culture and communication as they change over time. They change over time, but often appear to be, in our experience, as stable. So we can see, if we just look over the course of history, culture has changed so much. Communication has changed. And yet, even though there is a large amount of change happening, um, we experience culture and communication as something that's stable. So another dialect, history and the past, or the present and the future. So understanding that while current cultural conditions are important and that our actions now will inevitably affect our future, those conditions are not without a history. So I think in your book you saw there were a lot of pictures, if you remember reading this chapter, of like the Confederate flag, and how there's a lot of controversy around the Confederate flag now. Because it's a part of our history, it's a part of our past, but should it be as prominent in the present and in the future as it is? And then privileges and disadvantages dialect. So this is the complex interrelation of the systematic advantages and disadvantages that we see a lot in various identities. With this, like, in this category, a subcategory would be intersectionality, which is the question we ask. We are asked to acknowledge that we have multiple cultures and identities that intersect with each other, which I kind of talked about earlier. But these, race, gender, sexuality, your ability, all of these things, we fall into each one of those categories, and we might fall into different groups within those categories that are not expected of us. So there is a lot of intersectionality. So an example would be if you are, let's just say, if you're white, which has come with a lot of privilege in the past and currently. And yet, even though you're in a majority group in the race category, or in that race cultural identity, if you are a part of the LGBTQ community, your sexuality, you are a part of a minority group. So that's what I mean by intersectionality. I can't say, I'm struggling with words today. But we do cross, our identities and cultures do cross in each group, and we might fall into the different categories. Okay, so that's all. We were gonna have a whole thing. I was so excited. It was gonna be so much fun, but as is, we missed it. So that was culture and communication. Does anyone have any questions about that really quick mini lesson before we move on to our next thing? Looking for the chat, or if you want to come off mute if you have questions. Okay, awesome. Let me see what I have next here. Okay, good. I made a slide for this. So I am going to put a link in the chat. This should ask you to immediately make a copy, and this will be in the chat the whole time. So you can make multiple copies. I think we're only gonna have enough time for like 2, maybe 3 breakout rooms. But what we're going to do is go ahead and make a copy of that document that I just shared. What you're going to see is this peer feedback form. So essentially it looks a lot like your rubric, and I know there's a lot here and you don't have to fill out everything. Really just hit some of the big ones, like make sure there's an attention getter or whatnot. But what you're going to do, so it looks like this. You're literally just putting yes, you saw it, or no, you didn't see it, and you can ask follow-up questions. But I'm going to give you 15 minutes in a breakout room to discuss or read the outlines or rough drafts, so y'all can just like share it with each other, if it's on a Google Doc, or you can just like put the link in the chat with each other, or you can discuss it and just be like, here's what I've got, here's what I think, here's what I'm seeing. But fill out those peer review or peer feedback documents, and then you can share those documents with your partner. Do those make sense? Do those instructions make sense? So if they don't, please let me know. Okay, I'm seeing some thumbs up emojis or reactions. Okay, so we're gonna start off with the same groups that we just did the icebreaker in. Just start out with those. Room 7, so Max, Nick, and Vanessa. There's 3 of you, so it might be easy. Y'all can figure it out and do it how you want. It might be the way I'm looking at it. Max is the first name listed in that room. So like if Max wanted to share with Nick, Nick shared with Vanessa, and then Vanessa shared with Max, or you can share with both of your partners and then just get 2 peer feedback forms from them. It's however y'all want to organize it. I'm not going to be picky about this, but I am going to give y'all 15 minutes to discuss, read, fill out those forms, see if you see those things or don't see those things, ask questions, throw out ideas, brainstorm. This is y'all's time to get some work done and get some peer feedback. So with that, if no one has any questions, I'm going to zoop y'all off into your breakout rooms, and then we'll come back in 15 minutes and talk about it. Okay, y'all have fun. Let me push play again. I hope y'all were able to get some really good feedback. Let's do one more. So let me switch up these groups real quick. And then yeah, just let me switch up these groups real quick, and we'll do one more round of that. So if you need the link again, if you want to create another peer evaluation form for your person or people, but let me get these rooms switched up. And then we will, and you are going here. Y'all are just gonna have to hear me talk this out, otherwise it'll be hopeless and we'll have all sorts of things happening. Okay, so Jay, so we need to go here. We're gonna move you and you. And I believe, hang on, let's move you up here and you to here. All right, we're gonna see how I did on this. Hope y'all enjoyed my narration. We're gonna go to one more breakout room, and then we'll come back and we'll do a little debrief, talk about any questions you have, talk about when this is due, and upcoming assignments that you've got happening in Unit 3. But with that, I'm gonna zoop y'all off. Y'all have a great time. Y'all have fun. Houston, are you having problems getting into your breakout room? Continue this. How do we feel now that we've gotten some peer feedback? Feeling a little better? Feeling like meh? Feeling worse? I hope that's not the case, but how are we feeling now that this is over?
I feel pretty good. I feel pretty great about that. Like that was a good use of my time, you know.
Good, good. Glad y'all got some things out of it. I saw some thumbs up. Um, cool, perfect. Glad you got some things out of that. So, a couple more announcements that I forgot that I needed to tell y'all, and then I remembered while y'all were in breakout rooms. So, one, we had a meeting the other night about those conversation groups that the CSC is starting. I mentioned that last week, I believe, where it was just basically a conversation table where you go and they have prompts, and it's really just a laid back environment to practice some of your communication skills. They did their first one recently and it went really well, but they have a lot of non-native English speakers attending these, and they need more English speakers, like native English speakers. So obviously don't feel pressured, but if you are interested, let me know. I can get you that link. It's on their website. You can go to that. They just need some more native English speakers to help the non-native English speakers who are dying for connection right now because of COVID. So if y'all want to DM me on here, I'll make notes of who's messaging me right now about the conversation groups. But I'll send you that information if you let me know you're interested. Cool. All right. Awesome. I'm so glad I'm getting some volunteers here. I'll send all of you a group. So it's not volunteer hours. This is just a conversation table. I can offer so I'm not done grading the positive comm assignments yet. I can definitely offer some like bonus points on it, on that assignment or on this assignment to kind of make up for anything you might have missed. So I can definitely do something like that, but they are not volunteer. They're not considered volunteer hours. Okay, so all right, so y'all keep sending me those messages. All right, so Gray, I'm going to take that as you're interested in getting some more information about this and attending. You're going to get, when they have these scheduled, I'm going to have to find that email to basically forward to all of you. But essentially when you go, there will be like a Google form so they know who all is attending and they can send you the Zoom link. And there should be an option of like, are you receiving extra credit for this? And you'll just hit yes. And then that way they can tell me that you attended. So I can make note of that and apply that credit. So I will make sure that those who told me are interested, and I'll just honestly, at this point, so many people have messaged me that I can just send it to the entire class. Not through Blackboard because we obviously had a little snafu with that the other day. But I will just send all of that information out and you can go from there. Okay. Another thing, and I'm going to go ahead and show this to you. Lyrical asked me because she was having trouble accessing the PowerPoint that's on there for the guided Lyrical, what is it called? What were you looking for? The paper critique? Is that what you were?
PowerPoint. It was the PowerPoint to help for the assignment.
Yes. Okay. So, let me show you that PowerPoint. It's in Blackboard, but I have some information about citations because I know a lot of y'all were asking me about that when it comes to the book. There is no author, But the University of Minnesota Libraries owns that owns your textbook, and they can make any edits or anything like that. And I did email this to you, Lyrical, so you'll be able to see it. If anyone else has trouble, just let me know so I can send that to you. But when you're making your APA citations, you're going to be using, instead of an author's name, just go ahead and use the University of Minnesota Libraries, because technically they're the owner of it. So we're just going to count them as the author. Although if you look up APA in text citations, it's not going to look like, they don't put the publisher in text citations, but in this case we don't have an author, so just do with the University of Minnesota Libraries, and that will work for citations. But okay, so let's come back to this. Okay. Boop, bop, boop. We've done this. Y'all, I need a bigger monitor. I need to go invest in a computer where I can have multiple screens open. You're citing, Ethan, the only things you need to cite are the syllabus and the syllabus and survival guide and your book. Those are the two things you're citing. The preparation worksheet is a part of your syllabus and survival guide, but what you're actually bringing into the paper are those ethical implications. And what else? There's a couple of different things, like the foundational principles of communication and the ethical implications, all of which we've talked about and are in the syllabus and survival guide. That's what you're citing. So you're not necessarily citing the preparation worksheet, you're citing more of like for the ethical implication, and then you're citing from the book from chapters 5 through 8. So that's what you'll be citing. So your international, y'all, what is happening tonight? Okay, your interpersonal conflict communication paper. That's going to be due on October 24th by 11:59 p.m. on Blackboard. And I was going to talk to y'all about this Tuesday, but we'll come back. We're going to talk about it now because we had some things happen. Nick, I'm gonna post a video, like a longer, like a full lesson. I have not posted it yet because I have not had time to sit down and record. Just some disclosure, it's the end of the 9 weeks, which means grades are due, and I've been all sorts of hectic trying to get my students who've been quarantined caught up, and it's been a lot. So I'm a little behind on things that I need to do here, but I am catching up on those, and I do apologize for being behind. But I will post a video of what Tuesday's lesson was supposed to look like, although we did do a mini lesson. So okay, this is the interpersonal conflict rubric. Okay, your informative speech, service speech that's coming up. I've had some people email me questions about this. There is one option for you to actually volunteer. It is not required, and we'll go and look at all of those, but I believe that's option 1, is where you need a minimum of 4 service hours with an organization that's approved by me. That is an optional, like that is not a required thing. You don't have to go actively volunteer. Your other 2 options are informative past service. So if you choose that, you'll reflect on volunteer or service experience you've had with a nonprofit organization in the past. So if you've done a lot of volunteering before, whether that's in your church or whether that's with some community outreach program or whatever that looks like, you can use that option. If you are going to need volunteer hours for your major, pick a nonprofit organization and go get some volunteer hours. And that's a great way to start building your resume and networking and getting things done related to your major. Option 3 is if you don't have time to do volunteer hours right now and you haven't really done any volunteer or service hours in the past with a nonprofit, your third option is finding a local nonprofit in Little Rock that you want to learn more about. So if you don't have any experience, this is a great option. So let's look at these 3. See if they're, let's just find these 3. Okay. So here's the first option. Yeah, Kimmy, I know it's a little late. So if y'all need to leave, go for it. I'm recording this and I'll post the video later. Sorry, I know y'all need to get out of here. I just wanted to play catch up from last week or from Tuesday. So this is your first option. All of these are linked in the syllabus and survival guide. So you do have access to these. So you do need to recognize you will have to complete 4 hours if you're doing the first option, which is actually volunteering. You need at least 4 hours. I need to approve the nonprofit organization you're volunteering at. It needs to be completed prior to giving the speech. Your 4 hours and all of that needs to be done before giving the speech. So you can't do like complete the last couple of hours after you've already given the speech. So that's as far as actually doing the hours. Let's see. The speech, you're gonna have to deliver it in person or well via Zoom. And the speech must meet and not exceed the time requirements, which is 6 to 9 minutes. And no, you can have notes, but no reading directly from your notes. So that means like you can glance at it's okay to have an outline for you to make sure you're on the right page and like you're on the right track, but you need to know your material well enough that you don't have to read directly from it. So everything is on here, all of the main points that you need. You will need the service verification form filled out. So this is going to be filled out by you and signed by your service supervisor after you finish your 4 hours. So again, if you do this option, you need to make sure you get this filled out after your 4 hours are completed. So you can look more through that if that's something you're interested. Your past service. So again, if you've done something with your church or with a school or whatever, if you've got past service, a lot of the same requirements, only you've already had these hours done. So you don't have to worry about completing them. You don't have to do a verification form. But you will have the reflection worksheet. So that's, again, all the same requirements, all the same points, all the same main points and everything. You just don't have to complete the service. So you'll just be providing everything from past experience. And then the last one, if you're going to do the third option, so you've never volunteered before, you don't really have time to complete those hours, but you are interested in learning more, pick a local. So it has to be in Little Rock. I'll accept North Little Rock as well, but pick a local nonprofit organization. And again, you're going to be doing the same thing. There might be a couple of different things, like why were you interested in this, instead of answering some other things that you wouldn't know if you haven't volunteered there. But you do have all of these. It links to the implication, the ethical implication, the foundational communication principles. You have a different worksheet, I believe, but all of these are to help you get some of your ideas, get your concepts, your recommendations, so on and so forth. So let's see. Make sure I'm not. Let's see. Am I missing anything? All right. I think that's everything. That's coming up. We will talk about due dates and everything, but this is your final project. So remember, if you've got you have 3 required assignments to do in this class, and you have to complete all 3 in order to pass. If you don't complete these 3 assignments, you can't pass the class. So make sure you just finished the positive comm, you're finishing the interpersonal conflict, and then you'll have the service speech, and those are the 3 important ones that you need to get to me. So if y'all have questions before October 24th rolls around about your interpersonal conflict communication paper, let me know. Do make sure you're picking a real person in a real conflict, and just giving that real person a pseudonym, so changing their name for anonymity purposes. But this does need to be a very real person in a very real conflict. So make sure you are keeping that in mind. But with that, y'all will get an email from me soon with all of that information about the conversation group. If you need help accessing that PowerPoint for like the paper guide, let me know. I will get that to you. And if there are no questions, y'all are free to go.
I have a question. You said that do you have a link, or can you email me a link to you said in the last class before I broke out from that last Thursday, that there was a group of people that could review your stuff, or you had like the interns or something like that, right?
Yeah. The CSC, the CSC is what you're talking about. So if you, I'll send you.
Are they
send
the
you
same
link.
group that they're asking the volunteers for? Okay.
Yeah, so the CSC is putting on the conversation group, as well as they're the group of people who are who you can go to like help you brainstorm, or they can review your stuff, whatever the case is. But yeah, the CSC, you can Google UALR CSC and it will pop up, but I will also make sure I send you the CSC info for them, or at least the link to their website.
Okay. Thank you.
And then, yeah, no problem. And then Anthony, you asked if there's a submission link for the service inventory worksheet. It's all going to be on Blackboard, but it's all going to be in Unit 3. I don't remember what week folder it's in, but there is a submission link. It's just now open though. I opened it today, like before I left school. So it's definitely there. I don't remember what week it's in, but I will let you know when I find it. I'll make a note to look for it. Probably though, it's in the last weeks. I would say it's in like week 16 or week 15, one of those folders. Because that's when it will be due. All right, any other questions? Nick, I definitely have that written down, and I know you and I think there were a couple of other people went back and looked over those, and I definitely have seen them. I just haven't. I've been so busy between all the personal things and all of the school things.